Hey Jenea, how you doing today?
Fine. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. How's your day been so far?
Oh, pretty busy. A little busy.
Well, it's definitely good to see you. Yeah, so let the viewers know who you are, what you do, and why you do it, Jenea.
Okay, my name is Jenea. I'm a sex coach. I help couples and individuals get to that also moment so they can never miss out on that pleasure with themselves. I do it because I worked in the mental health field for about 5 years, and I also got my master's. And I used to live in this world where you could say I was kind of like just living. Every day I went to work, taught people, helped people. I enjoyed helping people, but there was something missing. I went into the field for career coaching for a little while. I really enjoyed it, but it was still felt like I was not doing what I enjoyed doing every day.
Right.
I didn't like getting up, and I, me and my baby daddy, I have two baby daddies. With my second one, uh, when we broke up, I felt this emotion that I never felt before. Anger, sadness, confusion. I felt like a dummy. All those emotions came.
Right.
And I tried to blow up his car. So I spent 2 days in jail. My parents took me out of help. Thank God for my parents. Um, and that's when I realized that I wanted to help women like me that was just living, and I didn't know how to speak up, tell people how I felt. Um, all those things I was teaching people about being passive and everything, it all stemmed down from me being quiet. And the conversation I could talk about all day is sex, all day. So that's what I decided. You see, I said, let me, and I don't want to just help women. I want to help couples because at the end of the day, when I was with my baby daddy, when I was with anybody, I never really told them anything. I would just be like, oh, this is what sex is supposed to be like.
Right.
So I started opening up my mouth and then experience sex like,
Right, right, right. So, like, you said like it got to a point where, like, with your baby father, like, you wanted to do something to his car, like, you're feeling kind of like angry within yourself. So a lot of that came from, you said, you keeping quiet within yourself. What were the things that you were keeping quiet about that you wasn't letting out that led to you wanting to, led to you getting so angry within yourself?
well, I left him in February. And by the time I want to say about June-ish, I found out that he had a new woman.
Right.
So he moved her in, he got with her. Um, we had two kids together. I left him because I want him to see that you can't just uh he would leave at night a lot. So I had suspicions that maybe he was talking to somebody else. But I was feeling like, no, he wasn't cheating on me. He couldn't cheat. We have kids, we got young kids, and a lot of times I was paying all the bills. We was living in his trailer, and I was upgrading it. I was fixing it. I was watching the kids. Like I said, I worked in the field, but I was outpatient, so that meant that I got to go to the client's home. They didn't come to me; I went to them. So I was I was a full time worker, full time mom. I was working on my business. I was also going into the coaching business. So I was doing all that all at the same time. And he seemed like he wanted my full time attention. And he didn't really help me. He was trying to do his own thing, saying that he was helping our family, but I had kept getting suspicious he was cheating. I got STDs twice. Um, he made me believe like, oh, that you just got that. So I just felt like I took the medicine. I just trusted that maybe he wasn't cheating. I was washing women clothes. So, and when I would confront him, I'd be like, where does clothes come from? Oh, that been there. You probably didn't see that before. And I would be like, oh, okay, maybe. But and a woman texts my phone. She was like, she'd been with him for 2 years, and my little girl was what 2 or 3 at the time. So that meant he was messing with her when I was pregnant. And when I sent him the thing, I left him. He texted me and he was like, "Oh, that I didn't explain that. You didn't give me time to explain that. She didn't mean we was together like that." But I didn't even know who the lady was. She knew who I was because obviously she found me. She found me on Facebook, texted me. So obviously she knew who I was. And she told me he went by her in my car. So it made sense. And then I ended up going back with him. When I would go back, we'd never talk about it. We'd never talk about anything. So I was so confused. And by the time I finally decided to let him go, he didn't fight for me. He just moved on.
Right,
So
right.
I was angry.
Mm, mm.
So
Your camera is moving around a little bit. I'm not sure why it's moving around so much. But yeah, when you said like at one point like you found out that he had given you an STD or you had contacted STD, at that point like you knew like well first of all what you was only sleeping with him at that time or was you sleeping with anyone else at that time? Okay, so at that time when you knew that you're only sleeping with him and you had got an STD, like didn't it occur to you or didn't what made you not think, okay, he's definitely seeing someone else at this point because of what has happened to me? Because you said you approached him and he denied seeing someone else, but you kind of accepted that even though you had contacted an STD. What made you still think that that wasn't happening?
because at the time I believed I went to do a lot of research on Google and they were saying that sometimes the STD don't show up right away. I was married before I was married and well I was married when I met him. But so I just assumed that maybe it was the STD didn't show up right away. Because the only reason why I knew I had one is because I was pregnant. And when you're pregnant, they take those tests. So
Mm,
I was kind of like, okay, maybe it didn't show up right away.
right,
That's why.
right,
But when I got the second STD, I was pregnant for my second child. He got in a wreck. And at the time he got in a wreck, he was found with drugs on him. So he was in jail. So when I found out I got the STD, he was in jail when I found out. And I confronted him about it. And he was like, oh, that's probably for something. But this was two. I had got the same one again and then another one. So I ended up with two. But I didn't know until I got pregnant. And the only reason why I didn't say anything, I was mad. I told him, I confronted him. He's like, oh, I don't know. You was not messing with nobody. I was like, because I knew I wasn't messing with nobody. How can I mess with somebody when I'm mostly home? That's what I was telling him.
mm,
You the one who was always going out. But he was like, yeah, but I don't mess with nobody. And I just trusted his word and just was trying to convince myself this couldn't happen to me.
right, right, right. And you did mention like the other woman knew about you, but you didn't know about her. So obviously that means he was communicating about your relationship to her. So at what point or what led to him feeling like okay, he's not able to communicate with you, but he's able to communicate with someone outside of your relationship. In your opinion, what do you think was going through his mind to make him come to that decision?
I think he came to that decision because I was the one he showed to the family. The other woman he didn't. And that's the most part I could have said because the other woman, I don't do drugs or anything. And my baby daddy was in that drug world. So I feel like she was somebody that he probably could have done drugs with too. He was plus she gave him money. I wasn't that type. I didn't give him money. So she was kind of like the woman that was doing the things he wanted
Right.
compared to me being the woman that I was his stability. I was the one he could show to the family, the one he was letting everybody know, oh, this is my woman.
Right, 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 right. So,
But
like, moving forward from that, like, how did you navigate to the place you are now, where you came out of that situation, or got in a better place where you now got into coaching and you were basically settled within your own self that you can do that?
well, what got me to this place is that I had to sit down with myself.
Right,
Something that we tell everybody to do, you know, how we always say, know who you are and all that. My life was so intertwined into this not being nothing. I was just living that I had to learn to sit down and actually sit with myself. And because I was never really out of a relationship. Since I was 16, I always been in a relationship. I went from my first baby daddy to another man to being married. And then I ended up being married to being with my second baby daddy. So I never been out of a relationship before. That was the first time I haven't been with nobody.
right,
So I had to sit down and I had to, at first I blamed myself, the usual. They call that the grieving process. I blamed myself. I talked about what I could have done different, all that. I was in grieving. I cried a lot. Um, I basically went through the grieving process until I had to accept that it is what it is. And when I got to that point, I had to learn to write down what I actually wanted and stop trying to just be with somebody. Loving myself. I had to love myself too.
Right.
Um, so a lot of things had to change within that. I could actually learn to hear myself when when I'm when I'm not. Oh, this is not me. Like I even started talking in my family, within my family. They're like, "Oh, Jenea, you not. That's not who we thought you was. Y'all never knew who I was because I always pretended to
Mm.
do what I felt like y'all wanted. And now that I'm being Jenea, everybody like, oh, Jenea, oh, don't tell Jenea that because Jenea gonna tell you what it is now. Because that always was me. I just kept it to myself. I didn't want to be judged. I didn't want people to think that I was somebody I wasn't. But I wasn't being me in the first place.
Right, right. So would you say that in that period that you spent by yourself is when you really found out who you were as Janae, as opposed to like before when you was like pleasing everybody else and your
Yeah.
partner?
Oh, when I was pleasing everybody else, I was an angry person.
Mm.
I was in an anger, dude. I would talk to my cousin. My cousin is like my best friend, and tell her she knew everything I felt because I always go talk to her about everything. And she said, "Why you don't tell that to them?" I said, "I don't know." Me and her was just alike. Like she would tell me it would make her angry. I would tell her, but I wouldn't tell the person.
Right,
So,
right, right.
so me and her would share stories all the time.
Right. So, for other women that are going through a similar situation where they are people pleasers, where they don't necessarily spend that time with themselves, but they like wanting to keep up appearances and keep everything going by pleasing, what would you say they can do to start to recognize themselves, even though they're going through that struggle at the moment?
Well, in the moment when I was going through it, when you notice you're getting angry, that's one thing that I noticed. I would get angry a lot. And I would always I would go to my cousin. My cousin was my best friend. I would
Right.
go to my cousin. I would tell her everything that would make me angry. She was like, "Why you worry about that? Why you do this?" I worry about it this because this. I want people to think that I'm this or that. When you start to get to that point where you're always trying to make people think who you are, that's when you realize that's not who you are.
Right.
You are who you are. So I had to learn to say, like, I believe in God too. So a lot of times I had to ask God, God, what does it mean? And then I had to listen. Like, what is the response? Sometimes I would hear it on TV shows. Sometimes I would hear it on podcasts. Sometimes I read it in a book. And I would hear, you got to be who you are. And I would be like, everybody always say, be who you are. Who is me?
Right.
I don't know who I am. You go around, you teach people this, you teaching them skills, deep breathing and all this stuff. But who am I?
Right.
Who who's me under all this? And when I learned who I was and I stopped trying to um get people to like me, I started to like me. And when I started to like me, I wake up and it's just a different person. I'm more happier. Even when people tell me something, I could let go problems. I like for real. Like if somebody sits down and say, "Look, I'm gonna let that go." You right. You right what you're saying. I'm not gonna argue with you. And I don't even feel angry at the end of the day. Like to be honest, I don't because I got to a place where I don't have to argue to be right also because I had in this place of the anger and learning to be myself and starting to tell people sometimes you just don't tell people stuff. You don't have to argue back.
Right.
But I learned to also set boundaries, standards, know when to walk away. All that comes with finding out who you are.
Right, right. No, it's very true. Like a lot of things that we see around us that we resonate with, like a lot of people feel like, okay, that's a part of me, that's a part of me. But it's actually the opposite. It's detoxing from everything to now be able to express yourself from within. That's the way that you actually find out who you are. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I will agree with that 100%.
Right, 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 right. Yeah, so moving on from that, like we go out all the time, we see different people that we're attracted to, we find different people attractive, right? So, in the context of human nature and the fact that we are attracted to different people all the time, what is your viewpoint on monogamy versus non-monogamy?
When you say monogamy, you mean like going with one person dating one person, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, and then non-monogamy is anything outside of that.
Okay. So like I said, I believe in God. So most of the things that I do believe in a marriage with a man and a woman. I do believe in that. But I also don't judge. So I know that sometimes I dealt with people that had poly relationships where there was a woman with a man and they had open where she dated men and the man dated women, other women, and then they dated where they had mm, a man in the relationship. But when I say that I agree that things should follow the Bible, to be honest. I can't have an opinion on that because I'm a human.
Mm.
And, but my opinion is to follow the scriptures.
Okay. All right. So like looking at the scriptures, like, traditionally there's gender roles where like there's someone that leads the relationship and someone that chooses to follow the relationship. What is your viewpoint on gender roles in terms of as a woman, do you feel more comfortable having a man that can lead the relationship that you choose to follow, or do you feel more comfortable leading yourself independent of your relationship? What is your viewpoint on that?
Okay, so I learned this is one of the things I learned about myself. I went with the traditional rules. I'm not traditional, but more of I was with a worldly view and the traditional. When it was like a man's supposed to lead, and also the world tell you be an independent woman, be an independent woman. I'm very independent. I make my own money. I got my own house. I take care. I could pay anything. Like I said, when I was with almost every man I was with, I took care of. I could afford my own car, my own house. I didn't need nobody to take care of me like that. But as I learned through my healing process, I learned that I was actually taken away from a man too. When I would get in a relationship, the way I would show them love is by giving, showing them that they didn't have to help me with the house, they didn't have to help me with the car, because I could have done it myself. I could have done that, and then I would get mad because I was like, man, why they don't give back? Why they don't give me nothing back in return? And I would try to force them to be that traditional man, be that leader. But I was independent also. So I was like, I don't really need them, but I don't need them. So it's kind of like they could see that I want them, I don't need them. Basically, attitude. That's how I had.
Right,
So I learned to balance it out. Like I don't tell somebody I can't help them, but I don't tell them I don't need help either.
right, right, right,
So it's like, and they be like, oh yeah, all my bills paid. But if they be like, well, how much is your bills? Okay, this is how much I pay a month. You want to help me? Or like I need help. I learned to allow myself to open up. That's another thing. I open up to people. Um, I'm not the type of person that don't say, oh, this hurt my feelings. I tell people it hurt my feelings. So I had to learn to balance. It's not really being independent and it's not really being a leader. It's really being together, having conversations, talking about things. That's what I had to learn.
right, right. Like how you carry yourself is how people tend to treat you. So if you carry yourself like you don't need nobody, they'll treat you like you don't need nobody, like in the same kind of way. So a lot of it comes from how we carry ourselves and how we present ourselves to
Mm-hmm.
people for them to reflect that, so to speak. Yeah, yeah. So looking at like monogamous relationships a bit deeper, when two people have chosen to be monogamous, maybe they're religious, maybe they're not, but they've chosen monogamy, right? Along the line, sometimes infidelity can happen where someone steps out of the relationship. Uh, so when that happens, the partner that has been cheated on doesn't necessarily always find out, but the partner that's stepped out can sometimes carry a sense of guilt about what's happened. If they want to come clean to their partner, but don't want to disrupt the relationship, is there a way they can navigate that conversation in a way that can be open to discussion with their partner?
Yes, I come across this so many times. You don't really know. Like most people, when they come, they feel guilt because they feel like most time, let's start there. When people step out of relationships, it's not because they don't love the other partner. That's not mostly why. And this come into my field of sex counseling. Most people step out of a relationship because they don't know how to communicate what they want in the bedroom. So
Right,
most of the time they step out is because they find it with somebody else, and it's not because they don't love the other partner. So when the conversation come, they see all these images that they see on TV that the person will leave them alone. They're gonna want to leave the relationship. They're gonna want to move everything away, man or woman. Because I hear women stepped out, I hear men stepped out, either or. But when the conversation comes about, most of the time, the hard part is telling the truth. There's no right or wrong way to say it. It's finding the right time, really. Like, and it will never be the right time. It's just you telling them that you want to fix it, and you have to deal with the consequences. Because sometimes the first thing the person want to do is walk away. They
right,
want, because they like, once you get cheated on, they like, oh, they gonna step out again. This person gonna leave me again. This person gonna do this again. No, but if that person is willing to work on the relationship, the person that got cheated on, that person, you gotta has to realize that the person never cheated on you because they didn't love you. That's not why.
right.
And then you gotta figure out a way of how y'all can move forward, what boundaries you could set, and then that person gotta deal with trust issues too. And then the person will wanna look in your phone, who you talking to, want to figure out where you're going all the time. So that's what they gotta work on. Those things, the after effects.
Right, right. Yeah, there are no guarantees in monogamy or any other type of relationship in
Mm.
life in general. But like being honest about what's going on will actually set the foundation for building any type of relationship going forward, as opposed to hiding things and lying, regardless of the situation. But you touched on like intimacy, like being one of the reasons why someone might step out. So in what ways can someone communicate better about their intimate needs in the bedroom, like so that they can get more satisfaction in that area?
Okay, first thing is becoming aware. I hone on awareness too. Be aware that there's something that you don't know how to communicate. Most people go on social media before they go to their partner. They go say, "Oh, I'm bored in bed," or "I want to go with somebody else." I'm thinking about my ex. My ex was better, but what made them better? Did they hit your hot spots? Where's your hot spots? Where's your hot spots? How you know where it's at? And then not always how it starts in the bedroom. It starts at the bedroom.
Right.
Uh, Talking about things that make them turn on. Sending sexy text messages like, "Oh, I remember last night," things like that, getting them hot before you get in the bedroom. So things like that also could turn somebody on. Also knowing to, when you get in the bed, not always for women. I'm not talking about the men. We uh spending more time with foreplay, not just going straight into sex. That too is
Mm.
ways that you could turn them on and stuff.
Yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure. Like the whole foreplay thing beforehand is like I'd say 90% of the fascination and like desire, the build up behind it, like that gets everything going. So that's a very important part to take care of and to understand yourself and to communicate that with your partner in order to get the best out of each other when you do get intimate, so to speak. Would you agree with that?
Yes, and that also ties into the topic of the walking away, cheating on that too, because a lot of people get into routines, and when our brain is not made for routines,
Right, exactly.
so we get in routines. So that ties into that too, breaking routines that could prevent, and I'm not gonna say 100%, but it could prevent the cheating also.
Right,
Being
right, right,
spontaneous, not always having things in a certain order.
right, right, exactly. Yeah, so a lot of people like when they get into a new relationship, they're feeling a lot of butterflies. There's a lot of chemistry. They're very excited about this new relationship that they're getting into, and they want to immerse themselves into this new relationship. But along the way of immersing themselves in this new relationship, some people tend to lose their sense of self in that process. So how can people immerse themselves in a new relationship without necessarily losing their sense of self in the process?
That's where the list goes in with knowing yourself comes in. It
Mm.
all goes tying back to knowing yourself, being aware, because once you know yourself, the thing that helped me when I left my baby daddy at the beginning, I was hopeful that we would get back together. That's the truth. Regardless of when I tried to blow up his car and all that, I was still hopeful we would get back together. But so I wrote down the things that I didn't like and I did like. So that's where you can start off with the checklist. And all the things you don't like, don't just look at it and say, okay, I don't like it, but change it around and say what you would like. Like, for instance, one of the things I didn't like is he always would tell me when I would bring up conversation, he'd always say to me, oh, I don't want to talk about that right now. So I wanted a man that would have an open conversation, somebody that would tell me, even if they didn't feel like talking about it right now, can we talk about that maybe tonight at 7 p.m.? Give me a time, make me feel that my conversation is important. So that way, and then I learned how to communicate that also. Because when you say what you do like, you can also learn how to communicate that to somebody. Oh, I like when we could talk. So that's way we could make it better. So being able to talk to somebody, writing down your dislikes and your likes. The things I like, you could keep on your list. The things you don't like, you make it into a like. How can this be better for you? Don't keep it as a dislike.
Right, right. And it comes down to timing as well, because, sometimes, when someone says they don't want to talk about something right now, it could have been the wrong time, like to speak about it. So, having the awareness that, okay, maybe this is not the right time to talk about it, not necessarily that they don't want to talk about it, can help in those kind of situations as well. Or what's your opinion on that?
Yes, that could be. But my baby daddy did it all the time. He didn't like to talk about subjects that he felt was too personal,
Right,
too anything. So a lot of times he would say, "Don't talk about it," and he was never talking about it. Really, that's what he meant.
right, right,
So
right.
it's by definition defining things. A lot of things defining, asking more questions. Okay, so like when he would tell me that, I said, "So when would be a better time for you?" Or I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna let you know.
Right,
And that's
right.
kind of like, so a lot of things he would brush off. It was a lot of brushing off in his part.
Right, right. And like you speak to different people all the time regarding their intimacy and things like that. What would you say is the biggest thing that you've seen like consistently, and what you've learned from the people that you spoke to regarding their issues in dating and relationships and intimacy?
Communication.
Right. Yeah.
That's the big thing, is communication.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And like, how can they start to better communicate when they don't know how to communicate effectively, or what is the path that you've been able to show them or advise them on to communicate better?
The way my program works is I always start off with awareness. I help them understand themselves first, because that's how I had to learn who you are, identifying hotspots, learning all that, defining who you are before we get into the communication. So once you know who you are, you can communicate that to each other. Because a lot of people feel that they don't have the chemistry. Like once the chemistry fade, they say, "Oh, we didn't have the chemistry." This is what they list everything that's wrong, but it's not. That's not technically wrong. They just don't know how to work it. And then we got so much information out there on the internet, social media, and everything. You could read about, about love bombing, about all these things, and people misinterpret it. And then they say, "Oh yeah, this is what I went through," but this is just a, a snippet of what could be happening. Because we all got, the biggest thing right now is narcissism. All of us got narcissism in us. Everybody. We all got this self about ourselves, and people don't realize that we all got that in us. Every last person. But it's some people just it's they try to find love, and that's just another topic for another day. But we communications is when we learn to open up our ears. It takes a lot of defining things, like just like when I was talking to you about, he said I don't that's not the right time, and you say it could have been not the right time. Yes, but for my baby daddy, it was never the right time with
Yes.
him. He never
And,
found time to discuss it,
right.
and it was he communicated. That's how he communicated with me. A lot of it was I tried to work it out with him. I really did, and it was a lot of I felt like a lot of dishonesty, a lot of not having time for me, a lot of he was always rushing, and it was never us, and that's why he could have moved on so fast, because it took me, I left him in February of 2023, and I still never really fully committed to nobody yet. There's a man that I'm talking to now that he's probably the perfect package, but I just the trust and the honesty. I talked to him a lot about it, and he got a lot of trust issues himself. So
Yeah,
it's a lot of talking, working it out, trying to figure out each other. But
right.
he's perfect.
Yeah. And to your point about like everybody having narcissism within them, like that's true. And it's healthy to have a little bit of narcissism that helps you like be confident within yourself. But it's when people overdo it, that's when it becomes a problem for other people as well. Yeah. So, Janae, it's been great speaking with you. Thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you, find out more about you, and find out more about what you do?
Well, they could go. I have a Facebook group. It's called Couples Cravings in the Bedroom. They could go and get in my group. I do males and females. They could both go in there. Couples, individuals. They can find me on Facebook at Jenea Frederick. That's my name on Facebook, on TikTok, on Instagram. All of them. That's
Excellent.
really.
And for the viewers, all of that information will be in the description below so you can get in touch with Janae. Once again, Janae, thank you so much for coming on. Any last words before we wrap up?
Well, the only last words I could say is that y'all have fun. Like life is fun. Don't
Yeah,
get caught up into this. Oh, I gotta have this perfect list and all this stuff. Just have fun. Enjoy life.
yeah, excellent. Thank you so much, Janae.
All right.
All right, take care.